If something crashes, well, then I'll just come back on Facebook. Yep, looks good. Okay. Just making sure. I'm checking Instagram. All right, good. So, pretty much what I want to do in this video is just finish up the arm on the Therizinosaurus. So I've got it partially done. I'll show. This is the other arm, which is already completed with feathers. I'll try and get it as close as possible so you can all see it. And now with this arm, you can see that it's still got the wire hanging out. It's not done yet. It's just got some skin. The hands are done. So I'm going to put the feathers on this right now. So that's basically what I'm going to do in this video. I also glue. But I figured I'd glue it on just so everyone can see. I'm trying to get it close. Sorry, I got to do it two different cameras because I've got my Instagram feed running on my cell phone and I've got my YouTube and Facebook running on my computer's camera. All right, so let me just check the comments here. Alex, could you sculpt an Allosaurus in your next video? Actually, I have two Allosaurus that I'm working on right now in the works. So, and I will do a live video of them. I'm actually doing them in monster clay. They're going to be my first full sculpture in that type of material. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a new thing. The nice thing about monster clay is that it's reusable. So I can sculpt an entire dinosaur, and then once I mold and cast, then I can take the clay and reuse it. Monster clay is also good because I can melt it down in a crock pot and I can actually pour it into molds and make copies and then make changes to certain sculptures that I've already done if I want to make them better and stuff. Actually, I'll kind of show you. This here is a bad casting of my young Tyrannosaurus. It got full of bubbles. It was just a bad casting. And then I got an idea, so I actually just quickly cut it along the jawline and opened it up and just re-glued it back on just to kind of see what it would look like with the mouth open. And I think that maybe down the line, I might do this with monster clay and actually re-sculpt it. And then it kind of gives another option for the sculpture. So, but yes, I'm really excited to do that, and I will do a video of sculpting the Allosaurus very soon. So right now I'm going to get to the feathers on this guy. So I have a certain sculpting tool that I like to use for that, and it's this right here. I've kind of bent it a little bit and kind of in the shape of like long skinny feathers, and that's what I use to sculpt these. You can see pretty much that it fits well backwards, so that's what I use for that. So I'm going to do that right now. Hopefully everybody can hear me loud and clear. Wow, this Therizinosaurus. Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah, it's pretty big. It's actually, this is a 1/15 scale Therizinosaurus. I can spin it around so you guys can see. It's I'm trying to remember how long it is now. It's been a while since I measured it. That was when I started, but it is pretty big, and I'll show you what it's going to go with here in a few minutes, but I'm just going to roll out this clay so it's all in the same thickness. So I'm just going to go over to the pasta maker. I'm going to set it just a little bit thicker. There we go. There. I like the pasta maker because, see, it makes it into an even thickness, which I think works really well for sculpting the feathers. So I'm just going to lay that on the side, and then I'm going to cut some feathers out, and then we're going to start attaching. Just checking comments. There we go. Perfect. All right. So please, if you're watching this video, feel free to share it so we can get as many people in as possible. Make it as interactive as possible. All right. So this is what it does right there. That's what the sculpting tool does. Cuts it into these nice feather shapes. So I'm going to cut a few of them out first. I was doing it individually before, but I find it's just faster if you cut a bunch out at once. Sometimes it gets stuck in the sculpting tool, so you have to push it away. Oh, nice. Sorry to you guys on Instagram. I'm not seeing your questions right away because, like I said, I'm filming it on my, doing the live video on my cell phone for Instagram. So it's because I've got it in a wide angle. The comments are coming up sideways, so sometimes it takes me a minute to see them, but I will try to check them as much as possible. Oh, hey, Tim, what's going on? Oh, Steve, how's it going, buddy? All right, so we'll cut a few more. So if you guys have any questions about the process, feel free to ask, or any comments or tips on ways that you guys like to do this sort of thing, then feel free to let me know or write it in the comments. There we go. I was thinking about doing one of these live videos with another sculptor, kind of doing like almost like a video podcast together. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly how to do that. Hangouts, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's still the way that you do it. Donna, I can't wait to catch up on all your videos. Oh, thanks, Donna. Yeah, well, I'm still learning too, so, and I do like to share it with other people because I know other people really enjoy sculpting, and it can be frustrating when you're trying to find out new things and you can't. At the end of this, I'll share a couple of resources that I think are really awesome. All right. Flipping it through. All right, so Tim is saying, just working on grabbing a screenshot from Lost World before I attempt to make my own. You know what? That's a good idea. Actually, my first sculpture that I ever made was a T-Rex chasing a Gallimimus, which was from the original Jurassic Park. And actually how I did it was I took an old camera and paused the VHS on an old tube TV and took the picture, got it printed out, or well, developed back then, and just stuck it on my wall, and that's how I made my very first sculpture back in the day. So screenshots are always good. The key to any kind of sculpture is references. You need as much reference as possible. If I could move the camera around a little bit, I'd show you that I actually have a cork board up in front of me that has skeletal references, references for the muscles, and then of course pictures of turkeys and lizards and stuff for skin detail. Okay, Steve Meyer, your love for this brother, some great. Oh, thanks, Steve, for the nice comment. There we go. All right, so let me check. $3.21. I'd love to do the podcast. Hey, that would be a great idea to do a podcast with you as well. Your ceratopsians that you're doing are absolutely amazing. I think they're great. So yeah, I'd definitely be interested in that. Just send me a message, or I'll send you one when I'm done, and we can figure out how to do it. I'm just not sure, like I was saying, about how to do the video cast with two people. So I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do that. I'm assuming it's on YouTube. And of course, while doing this live, my sculpting tool breaks. I've actually had this sculpting tool since I was about 15, 16 years old. It's one of my oldest sculpting tools, so I'm not really upset about it. And I happen to have another one that's fairly similar. This one's just got a little bit of a rounded edge instead of a point. So there we go. That's fine. Actually, it's going to work good because it's going to cut a little bit, cut some of the feathers a little shorter so we don't have all the same length. So we'll cut a few more. To all those who are watching on YouTube, I'm just going to say, hey, I can't really see the comments coming up for some reason. So sorry about that. I'll try and figure out what's going on there. So it's kind of hard to broadcast to 3 or 4 different social media platforms at once and read all the comments, but I will try. And I also will go back and look through them, and if there's comments I missed or things I can add to, then I'll definitely do that for sure. So I noticed that I don't know if anybody's watching from the UK, but I guess Jurassic World is already out over there, and I see the reviews are pretty good for the most part, which makes me excited. We got to wait 2 more weeks here in Canada, and I guess the United States as well. So trying to avoid spoilers. But I am looking forward to seeing that Carnotaurus. Probably my second favorite dinosaur next to Allosaurus, which is also apparently in the movie. So hopefully they did it justice. All right, so cut a bunch of these up. So we're going to move some of these parts out of the way. This one I want to keep. fairly close though, so I can look at it for reference and make sure it's the same. Now, one thing I will explain before I start, if you look at this mesh that I've glued on here, when I push the feathers down into it, they don't actually go right through. So I can't just put one layer of feathers. That's kind of what I originally had in mind, but I can't do that. So what I did is I did a layer on the front, and hopefully you can see right there, I did the front layer. And then you can see at the bottom, I've done a layer in the back and then kind of joined them in together so you don't see the mesh. So, and I'll have to go in and fill, like there's a crack there, and I'll have to fill that in because I do plan on making a mold of this. So, and because I'm trying to make molds, I definitely have to make sure that I don't have seams. Oh, okay, so we've got some people from YouTube. I can see them now. Says unprofessionally. Professional says hi. I've seen your work and it's awesome. Hi from Scotland. Well, hey guys, how's it going? And thank you for the kind words about my work. Like I said, I'm always learning and just keep trying to figure out new things. So, all right, so let's join these on right now, and we'll just push them in. Now you notice I don't use gloves. I do sometimes, but I hate gloves. I find them very restrictive. I probably should use them more, but for this part I don't really need them because I'm just going to push them on. I'm going to use some of these short ones, and let's check the first ones out here because although I don't need to have it necessarily exactly the same, I do want it roughly the same. So I'm going to cut them a little shorter. I'm going to press them in. Okay, and for this one, I'm going to see if I can get up close and show you guys. I'll use this rubber sculpting tool, and I'm going to start by making the line. Use my fingernail to hold it in place because it's still kind of brittle. Make the center line. Then I'm going to use another sculpting tool, of which most have slid underneath. I think I'll use one like this. And I'll make the little lines. Now, I'm not the best at making feathers. This is actually the very first feathered dinosaur that I have ever done. I've been more of a scales type guy. So, but roughly, it's just kind of like doing lines down one side and lines down the other. Now, what I'll do in a little bit is I will actually smooth this out with alcohol. And the nice thing is that the alcohol also gets rid of the fingerprints. So if there's any remnants of any kind of fingerprints, then that's going to be Matthew. Oh, thanks, Matthew. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the kind words. I'm just glad to see that there's so many people that are on here that are actually into sculpting and building dinosaur model kits and stuff like that. What dinosaur are you making? I just joined. Okay, so this is a 1/15 scale Therizinosaurus. I probably should have put that in the stream. The reason why I just put sculpting dinosaurs in the stream though is because I wasn't sure if I was going to show some other dinosaurs. So just trying to see some stuff here. All right, sorry, just going to some more comments. So anyway, yes, 1/15 scale. Therizinosaurus. Okay, so we got one feather done. Now we're going to grab another short one here, and I'm going to overlap it. And usually I don't do the feathers one at a time like that. I kind of just lay a bunch on, squash them down, because I don't need to get in behind like that. If I'm messing up on the camera angle, guys, just let me know. Just write it in the comments if I'm sticking my head in the way, and I'll try to pull back. What kind of material are you using? Okay, so the material I'm using is Super Sculpey. It's not actually completely firm. It's a half and half mix, and actually I can show you that right now because I have it laid out. So this here, firm, regular, 50-50, mix it together, run it through the pasta maker, and it comes out. Here's some half mixed. You can see it's still not fully done. I just kind of quickly mix that up, and then I gotta run it through the pasta maker to finish the process. So, but the process though, the entire process is the Super Sculpey is over a layer of epoxy sculpt. So if you're going to make it, I find the problem is that when you're building these armatures, you usually build them out of a little bit of, well, there's like a piece of wood in here, and then there's wire coming out, and then wire up here, and wire for the legs, and then you bulk it out with tin foil, and then you kind of wrap masking tape around it and make a fairly solid armature. And some people are really good at that. I'm not too bad at it, but I don't do it really like the best that I could. I know when I did actually took a class at Jersey Fest with Shane Folks. I'm sure if you're into this, the dinosaur sculpting, then you've heard of him. Cretaceous Creations of America, probably the top sculptor in this, in the dinosaur resin kit scene. Been around for a long time, but when he makes his armatures, they're pretty solid. Like they almost look like a sculpture before he even puts any clay on it, which I find pretty phenomenal. But I sometimes mess up, and if I'm leaving loose, kind of loose tin foil and masking tape where it's still, you can squash it and push it in and stuff. I find when you lay Sculpey over that, what happens is that's where the Sculpey cracks when it bakes later on in the oven. So for me, I always put Abe's Epoxy Sculpt over the whole dinosaur for my first layer because I don't want cracking issues. So I'm going to slim these down a little bit. Doesn't matter if they look like they're just joined together up here, because that looks terrible. But that doesn't matter because, as you can see, I built this kind of proto feathers, almost like a feathery fur coat. and it overlaps. So that's okay that it looks like that. I still will probably fix it a little bit. All right. What dinosaur did you first sculpt? That's a great question. Okay, so I've kind of been into the sculpting thing 2 times now. Once when I was younger. I actually learned to sculpt when I was a teenager. And the first sculpture I made as a teenager was T-Rex versus Gallimimus, obviously from Jurassic Park, because, you know, Jurassic Park is, you know, something I was very fond of when I was young. And also, it was kind of the thing that sparked my interest in the whole sculpting thing. Before that, you know, I mean, I love dinosaurs since I was 5 or 6 years old, but not in a way of paleo art. You know, I was interested in them, and then I started to look at books by Gregory S. Paul, who still makes books today. The Princeton Field Guide to Dinosaurs would be his latest one. And there were some other ones. There was an encyclopedia of dinosaurs that came out. There's many books with that title, but there's one in particular, and it had a lot of Gregory S. Paul, Mark Collette pictures. Brian, now I can't remember his last name. One of my favorites, though, from that era. And so then I was like, well, I need to learn to draw dinosaurs. And so then I bought this sketchbook and drew dinosaurs, and every day I would draw a dinosaur, because I just was enthused to learn how to draw them based on these books and stuff. And then I bought a book called The Making of Jurassic Park, and I found it very interesting to see how the dinosaurs were all sculpted as maquettes and then built life size. I mean, I couldn't believe that. I was amazed. So when I saw the picture of them sculpting the 1/5 scale spitter, then I was like, well, the drawing was fun, but I want to learn how to sculpt these things. So I took, like I explained in the beginning of the video, sorry about that. I took a screenshot of the scene where the T-Rex is almost on the Gallimimus eating it, and just hung the picture up and started sculpting. So that was my original sculpture way back in the day. I don't have any of those sculptures from when I was a kid, unfortunately. You know, life just has a way of bringing lots of change and things, and lots of moving, and different things happen. And unfortunately, when you're young and you've made stuff out of Sculpey that was very brittle, it breaks over time. And so my sculptures from that era are all gone. But in 2011, I did get back into the hobby, and my first sculpture was Suchomimus, and I'm sure I have pictures of it on the Dinosaur Dungeon Facebook page. Donna has a question. Super sculpting. Is there a reason why it is preferred over something self-hardening like epoxy sculpt? Okay, so here's my thinking of why I don't finish the product or finish my sculpture in epoxy sculpt, and that is because it has a drying time of its own. So if I put epoxy sculpt right here, then I need to finish that spot in like an hour and a half. If I don't finish it, then it's going to start hardening, and then I've wasted clay. With Super Sculpey, I find it's a little bit easier to sculpt detail into, maybe quite a bit easier, and I can leave this sit. So say I'm sculpting today, and tomorrow an emergency happens and I have to go to another place or something, and you know, for whatever reason or something happens, I can leave this sit and I can be gone for quite a while, and that's okay. And I can come back and then I can continue where I left off. So that's why I use Sculpey over Epoxy Sculpt. You can do a completed sculpture in it, but you would have to do, well, whatever size you could handle, obviously. So if you could only do that much skin detail in a night, you'd have to make sure you do that and then smear another piece on, and then you'd also have to make sure it looks good, like it's joined together. So that's your that's the other issue. So hopefully that answers your question, Donna. But anyway, so now we've got a few feathers laid out here. You can see we're getting there almost to the end. So we're going to keep going. Might as well just keep going because we're almost done. And then we're going to make sure that it kind of looks similar. These feathers are tilted back a little more. Already I noticed I've made a little bit of a mistake not doing that, but that's fine because we can also overlap them a bit. Come in and cut them down here. There we go. All right. So let's see here, just checking comments. All right. I'm going to do a few more and then on this side, and then that'll be it. And then I'll sculpt the detail in, and then I'll flip to the other side. And the nice thing, because this piece is small, I actually have a little toaster oven behind me, so I can actually bake that piece and then keep working on other things. So that's what I do when I'm working on the small parts. When this whole dinosaur or any of the larger pieces have to be done, then I use my oven upstairs. All right, so I'm just smoothing this stuff down a little bit, making it look a little better than what it was. Some of this, it looks like it's broke off the and again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. I mean, birds have feathers falling off and stuff. It's not all completely even in nature, so that's okay. All right. So let's see here if I put these up together. You can see that it looks pretty good. I'd say it's pretty close, and like I said, we don't want it bang on. All right. So I'm going to do some detail in that. And I also wanted to ask what you guys think as far as times to do live videos. I was doing some in the daytime, and I noticed that the feedback isn't as great. There isn't as many people on, so I'm thinking that maybe once a week I would do it in the evening like this. So if there's a certain day or a certain time that you guys think would be cool, then feel free to let me know. All right, so now I'm going to use that tool, but I'm going to show you first here. You can see how the mesh is still stuck there. So that's why we will have to do another side. We'll do an inner layer. See if I can bring that in close. There we go. And then once we do that, then we'll use the alcohol to smooth it all over. All right. Zach, Robin, Bailey, hello. Hey, buddy, how's it going? All right. Just making sure, just checking comments again. Tyrannos Rex 4 says hello. Hey, buddy, how's it going? Okay, so let's get these. Smoothed out. And also, I guess another question would be, what platform do you enjoy watching videos like this on? Do you prefer it on through the YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, or something else? I noticed a lot of sculptors do streaming through Twitch, which I've never tried before, but I noticed it's getting some more popularity. I know originally it was basically for video games, but now they've started a Twitch creators thing that's for artists, which I think is really awesome. So feel free to let me know what you guys think about that. There we go. Still looks a little rough in there. All right, so we got our middle lines down now. All right, so yeah, that is another thing too, is that I try to make sure that when I'm done the video, I save them. So that way they're on YouTube. If I broadcast it live to YouTube, then I make sure it's uploaded there, and you can always go back and view it later. So that's one thing. Same with Facebook. Anybody who watches on Facebook knows that they can usually catch up on it later on. So I will continue to do so. I'll always save it. Now Instagram, I'm pretty sure the deal with Instagram is that you can add it to your story and it stays for 24 hours and that's it. So unfortunately, I can't keep it on Instagram, but I'm pretty sure if you're on Instagram, then you can go over to Facebook because they're owned by the same company and they're linked together, I believe. So I'm not sure 100%. I know mine's linked together, but I also did that myself. Someone on YouTube is asking, what dinosaur is this? This is a Therizinosaurus. All right, so let's grab this other tool and we're going to go in now. We're going to sculpt the little lines. There we go. And then go in like that. And you'll get the little burrs in the clay, but that's okay because, like I said, I'm going to come over this with alcohol very shortly so you can see. All right. I probably won't be able to get this arm finished tonight because it does take a little while to do this stuff, but you'll have a basic idea of what I'm doing before I go. Sorry if I get silent for a minute. Sometimes when I'm doing the really fine detail, I get into deep concentration. You can probably tell that just by how close I get to the sculpture when I'm doing this stuff. What kind of alcohol do you use? I just use basic 99% alcohol that you buy from Costco, like this stuff right here, and that works great. I bought like the 50% alcohol before, and it doesn't really, I don't know, it's not really that good. So, but that 99% stuff works really good. So we're gonna keep coming in here. We gotta be careful too when we're doing this. That's why in some respects it probably would be better doing each one of these individually, but sculpting in small scale is kind of different than large scale too. Like when you're doing life size, obviously everything has to be on everything has to be 1-to-1 scale, just like the animal you're sculpting. So if you're sculpting feathers or fur or skin or whatever, it has to be the same size. But with this, it doesn't require the same amount of detail. Obviously you want as much detail as possible, but sometimes sculpting in small scale is kind of an illusion, you know. You want to make lines and bumps and stuff that, you know, to the eye look like skin detail, even though if you were to get right up close, it might not look exactly the same. But you want it as close to realism as you possibly can. What a beautiful chicken. Yeah, it does look very much like a chicken at this point. And you know what? That's kind of the idea, right? Because the whole idea of these type of dinosaurs is their relation to birds. And really, to me, when you look at these Therizinosaurs, they look like humongous turkeys. So I'm gonna flip over after this one. I'm gonna set it down for 1 sec. Well, you can see it looks rough. That's okay. Like I said, we'll smooth it down with the alcohol in just a minute. I'm just gonna check comments. Okay, so we got, all right. Spiders usually started. Well, that's good if it inspires you, because that's exactly the point of making the videos. Like, most of my inspiration has come from watching other sculptors work, and that's why I like the Stan Winston School of Character Art so much, because you can learn so much just from watching what they do. And I'm happy to see there's a source. Yeah, I didn't want to do that kind of like moppy looking tail. I noticed a lot of people do that. I thought that individual feathers on the end of the tail would look a little bit more cool and a little bit different than what other people have done. So that was kind of my thinking with that. I know it makes the tail look a little bit longer than what it actually is. If I was able to take it off, you'd see that the tail ends about here, and I made it more like a fan. So, but yeah, that's my thinking. I think it looks cool. Some of the other Therizinosaurs I see kind of just look like somebody glued a bunch of peacock feathers to it that are just drooping on the ground. And I mean, I guess that's one way to look at it, but I don't know. I don't see that when I look at this guy. All right. So it's going to need a couple of shorter feathers on this side before I'm just going to wrap it up with maybe one or two more into here. But I'm going to grab some of this rubbing alcohol. There we go. One thing I do want to say, just in case Instagram cuts me off, I noticed, I think it was yesterday, I was doing Instagram and Facebook at the same time, and the Instagram just shut off. So if that happens again, sorry about that. I don't really know why it did that. If it has a time limit on it or what's going on there, but if it does, there's a link in my Instagram page. If you click on my bio, you should be able to get over to my Facebook page, and the live video will be continuing over there. All right, so you can see now just by running that rubbing alcohol, it kind of smooths everything over. It gives it a little bit nicer look. The nice thing about the doing it this way too is the brush itself. I'm using a harder brush, so it kind of puts some texture in and adds a little bit to the feather work. So that's another reason why I like to make sure I use a stiffer brush rather than one of those really soft ones. So there we go. Just checking for comments again. Just give me 1 sec. Just don't want to leave anybody. Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, well again, see with the tail, like I made these feathers really light, so obviously this tail could flip up and stuff like that. But I had to cut the legs before I finished sculpting them. That way the wire wouldn't be in there when I was done. Because sometimes when you're doing it later on, it will wreck the finished product. So I don't like to do that. I like to cut it ahead of time and then finish the sculpture. So Doug Myers 90 Therizinosaurus, amazing work. Oh, thanks, Doug. Yes, it is a Therizinosaurus. All right, so I think I'm just gonna add this one short feather on here. Try a different tool. Grate the wine in it. going to switch over. All right. Just going to smooth it out with this. These silicone-based sculpting tools are really cool. I bought them a while ago and then I never really used them. So lately I've been trying to incorporate them into my sculptures, and I'm really liking them. They work really well. Kind of gives you a softer detail. It's not so rough like the metal tools. All right, so I'm going to try a different tool, see what effect it gives me for the... You know what? I think that actually looks a bit better. All right, so there we go. Kind of a shorter, wider feather. Let's get the brush. We'll go over it all one more time. Yeah, I like that. With that last tool, did a little bit better. So I'm going to actually switch to using that. I'm going to go in here and just cut into some of these feathers just a little bit. Give some grooves. I don't want to cut into all of them. Just cut into a few of them at different spots. Maybe this tall one down here. Yeah, just a few. Maybe we'll cut into that last one just a little bit. All right. So there's that side done. Now, actually, what I'm just going to explain what else I'm going to do here. So the only other thing I can do now is put some more detail on the hand, like I've done with this one here, over the front of the hands. I can do that, and then that'll be it. The reason being is that I will do the other side, but I don't do the other side until I've baked this first side. It kind of gives it more stability, because if I try and do this now, I start on the other side, what's going to happen is I'm just going to push around the work that I've already done, and most likely I'll end up grabbing it accidentally, which I don't want to do. Random question, why 1/15 scale? Okay, so 1/15 scale is a popular scale. There's some other sculptors that use it, so it's out there. There's a lot of people who already have 15th scale, and of course 20th is the other one that's big, or big for dinosaurs. I like the 15th scale. I'm a big guy with big hands, so I find that the larger scale is easier for me to sculpt than the smaller scale. I usually do 1/20th is about the smallest I like to do. I don't really do the 30th or 40th scale, like the little Carnegie figures or anything like that. I have tried, and I might get into that in a little bit, but I prefer the larger, and it makes it nicer for people who already have 15th scale dinosaurs. They can just, when they get one of these, they can just add it to their collection, and then everything kind of matches up on the same scale. Originally, when I did 1/15th, it was a Camptosaurus, and I did it because I bought a sculpture from Shane Folks, and it wasn't the same scale. And then I realized that there is a lot of dinosaurs in that scale. So hopefully that answers your question. But feel free, anybody who's watching, to let me know, like, what would your favorite scale be? and what scale models do you collect? Because I'm always interested to know what people like and what people are collecting. I know there are a few people who say that they don't really feel that they have the room for a scale that large. So, but to me, I think it's a little bit nicer. And again, you can kind of get some more detail in that size. If you look at like Carnegie and stuff like that, they're very nice, and I have a lot of them. And the Safari, the Wild Safari ones that are coming out now are actually getting phenomenal detail for the size. But I like the larger pieces. That's just me. All right. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail to the top of this hand, which is actually going to kind of work out in another way because there is a tiny hairline crack. I don't know if anybody can see it, but so while I'm doing this, adding this detail, it will also fill that small crack in. All right, let me just check some comments quickly. Okay, Tim, 1/20th is as small as I'll collect. It's a large. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 1/20th is mostly like that's mostly the smallest that I'll go. Like I said, I do have Carnegie's and stuff, and Papo. I do like Papo for the small dinosaurs, but I like them more for reference really than anything else. And I actually do look at them. I actually find that I don't know who the sculptor is, but they know their anatomy for sure. Night Junior Designs is amazing. I've been watching. Oh, thank you so much. All right, so I'm just going to do one of these fingers, and then I'll probably end the video there because then you'll get an idea of what I'm going to do on the rest of the fingers. And pretty much with the feathers, I'm going to actually flip it over once it's baked, and I'm going to do the exact same process. I'll probably come back and do another video maybe later in the week, most likely early next week, and maybe show you probably finishing up the head, because again, there's no need to do another video on the hands because I'm going to repeat the process. And okay, so now, sorry, I do see a timer going on Instagram that tells me I have 15 seconds. I just popped out of nowhere. So I will say goodbye now to everybody who's on Instagram. Head on over to Facebook if you want to see the last 5 to 10 minutes. Sorry, I didn't know that it does that. And it is now shared in my story. So Instagram guys are gone. Hopefully they can head on over to Facebook. And now I know that there is a 1 hour timer, and that's why it cut off. All right, so I'm just going to quickly add a few more pieces to this hand, and then I'm going to end the video there. I'll show you guys in just a second what I'm doing. All right, almost done here. Just going to quickly add a little bit more on here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So I got to add 2 more pieces on the middle to make sure that it's the right size. All right, so here's what I did. Now hopefully it's going to zoom in or not. Let's get it right up there. No. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's really rough. And again, I'll have to fix that up and flatten it out. And I'll probably cut the ends off. But you get the basic idea of what I'm doing. So anyway, I'm going to call it a night as far as the sculpting goes. Just quickly before I go, eventually, and let's see if I can move my camera just a bit. This Therizinosaurus will be attacked by this Tarbosaurus. So that's the goal. This is in the same scale, but he won't be done for a while, but that's kind of the idea. So anyway, I will come back soon with a new video. So thank you all for watching, and please check me out on my Facebook page, YouTube, Instagram, and I'll be back soon, guys. Thank you all for watching, and have a great night.